Hey guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. Okay, thank you for coming back after our collective vacation, slash the one that I went on, but you guys were also not here for. Okay, so if you've been keeping an eye on my Tumblr, then you know what we're talking about today, and it is a very exciting topic. I'm very much looking forward to getting into it. So the book club has a name. I don't think it had a name last time. It feels like so long ago. We're all such different people now. But yeah, so the Erotic Book Club has a name. It is the Society for the Promotion of Erotic Ladies in Literature, SPELL spell. So I'm not going to go into as much detail about the book here because we are having a very lively discussion about it on Tumblr. So if you want to join in, that would be the place to do it. So the awakening is like extremely unsettling, but I think that's because it's designed to unsettle. It was written specifically for the women of the Victorian era. But at the same time, when we're reading it today, we are already kind of aware of these things. So being reminded of them and seeing this woman who sort of struggles with her situation can be very difficult and unsettling, I think, is the repeated word. The use of unsettling and I think despondent have been sort of the feelings about the ending, about watching what happens when a woman has this creative and sexual awakening and then there's not really anywhere she can go with that because there are limitations by society. So, super interesting conversation. Next month, I know for sure we are going to be reading the first book in the Sleeping Beauty trilogy by Anne Rice. So she wrote it under a pseudonym, probably to differentiate from her vampire books. But so the thing about this book is I have never read it before. This is my first foray into it, but it's extremely famous. It is definitely the forerunner to contemporary erotica. It's sort of the follow-up to what was established by Kate and Anais, and now we're with Anne Rice. I'm aware that it's a weird book. I've been told that many times. I'm not sure how good it is, which has me kind of wondering if I might pair it with another book. But mostly I think what I want to stay in terms of conversation is the fact that we've come from this era of sexual awakening, right? We've gone through Kate Chopin and the Awakening, to Anais and her sexual awakening in Henry and June. And now we have a literal awakening with Sleeping Beauty. So whether you'd like to read it or not, that's up to you. I don't know. I guess let's say I don't know what the trigger warnings would be. I should probably look that up. It's still worth having the discussion of why do we recreate these fairy tales and why Sleeping Beauty specifically? Because Sleeping Beauty is barely even a character in the story. She's like the object in the story. So this will be our discussion for next month. Oh, and so Spell, if you want to be up to date with what we're up to in Spell, you can check it out on my Tumblr. I will include links here, and you can also find it on my website. First we have, kind of a long ask. Okay, so, dear Olivie, you are a blessing. Thank you. I have binged your YouTube videos and feel like we're friends now, which we are. Why would I be doing what? Who am I chatting to if not my friends? I'm a woman in my early 30s, but extremely inexperienced with romance because I've always distracted myself in my career due to a deep fear of rejection and showing any weakness. That's in line with the female experience for sure. I've liked some guys, but it always seemed they weren't interested in me, so we became at best sort of friends with no romance whatsoever except for some generic flirting. Now there's this guy I worked with last year. He's now in another department but at the same place of work and we're workplace friends. I don't even know if he has a girlfriend. The farthest I got with asking him out was when I asked him to meet me. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. It's just very cute. It's just very cute. The farthest I got with asking him out was when I asked him to meet me to help with a job interview, which he did assure me he will do. He volunteered. But I know for a fact he has a busy schedule, so not even sure that's happening. Sorry to dump this on you, but I just feel you might have some suggestions or words of wisdom. Well, I'm always a proponent of being brave. I mean, even to the point where I'm really not even a feel it out sort of person. I was always the kind of girl who was like, hey, I like you. Oh, there's a siren. There's like a lot of sirens. I was always the kind of girl who was just going to go up to a guy and say, hey, I like you. I've said before that Mr. Blake asked me out, but that is really only a matter of timing. He just did it before I could. I was going to if he didn't. It sounds like you're kind of in a place where you are starting to maybe want to be brave. Maybe you're ready for a relationship now, or you think it's something that you might want. So there is always the option of asking him out. You could ask him to go have a drink with you. I mean, sure, he's got a busy schedule, but that's a very normal thing to do. You could ask him if he wants to go to happy hour or something. I say a drink specifically because sometimes coffee can be a fun thing. Like lunch and coffee, daytime activities, those are a little bit unclear. But dinner, drinks, those are more like, you're asking me on a date. If he says he has a girlfriend, then, I mean, it's not like you trying to suss out whether he has a girlfriend is really going to change anything. If he does, he does, and if he doesn't, whatever. But I do think that there is nothing wrong with, hey, do you want to spend time with me one-on-one? Let's go do something. I mean, the question of does a guy like you is always a really hard thing to know. There's not a good way to figure that out. And I'm not really a proponent of like, let's guess, let's play a guessing game. I am more in the vein of, hey, let's just talk and find out. I think part of that comes from my belief that if something is going to work out, it's going to work out whether you fuck it up or not. You know what I mean? Like, there's no like right or wrong way to ask him out the first time. You just do it and see how it goes. I'm also not really a proponent of like, oh, I don't want to ruin the friendship, because to me, what kind of friendship is it really if you have feelings for him and you're just like waiting to find out if he might have feelings for you too? That's very confusing to me. But yeah, no, it sounds like this is a great first step. You asked him to do something that's still work related, so it's not probably going to get you any answers. And you might want to wait and see how this goes. If it's a difficult thing to schedule and it seems like he's putting it off, I don't know, you have to read the room, but give it a try. I think it's great that you're trying, and that it's great that you're putting yourself out there. And dating is different and easy and hard in its own ways for basically everyone. It is, I mean, romance is in a lot of ways the height of experience, human connection and whatnot. So it's never going to be easy. But I think you're doing great, and we're definitely friends, and I'm here for you. And when it comes to whatever comes next and you need advice for that, I'm here. Okay, on to this topic. So I really should have wine, but it's pretty early in the morning. Hello, I don't know if this is a weird ask, but here I am taking the risk. Always take a risk. Actually, just like a general thing about me, it's pretty hard to weird me out. I'm not too precious about anything is, I guess, a sort of British way to put that. I was wondering, what are your thoughts about female masturbation? Obviously, you write erotica, so you must have some opinions on sexy-related topics. Yes, I do. And I've always felt shame and or guilt about masturbating until recently, so I didn't do it much. Is it weird or TMI to say I love your more steamy stories to get off? No, that's perfectly fine. Would love to hear what you have to say on the matter in general. Thanks. So then I invited a bunch of other people to ask about masturbation, and I have a ton of asks that are sort of breaking things down. I have one here. Oh my gosh, the previous post about masturbation was just perfect for me. I experimented roughly since I was 16, but I only started truly feeling comfortable with self-experimentation when I started reading fanfic, which was only recently. And they're saying cringe because they're 26 now, but like, whatever. How old is Edna in The Awakening? Like 27 or 28? Everything is fine. I'm so looking forward to your vlog on it. Good. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, my thoughts on female masturbation. Well, just in general, my thoughts on it are it's actually really important. And this is coming from someone who did not do it for a really long time. I didn't really start doing it until after I was married, which is not a reflection on my husband's sexual abilities. I grew up in a very religious household, where I was told to like hold on to my virginity. I wasn't allowed to use tampons and stuff like that. And so sex was never something I could talk about, but it was something I had a lot of questions about and no one to talk to. So where did I get that information? I usually snuck romance books into my house. The Bridges of Madison County is like one of the first ones I read, and I hid it from my mother, and also The Notebook, I think, and like just anything I could get my hands on, because I had this interest in romance, but not just romance. What I had an interest in was sex specifically. But there's a lot of shame about that, right? Especially when you're a teenage girl, which is super dumb because boys just, it's very normal for boys to just look up porn on the internet and it's very available to them. And even if girls could look up porn, it wouldn't be something that's pleasing for them because it's not designed for them, usually. I've said this many times, but if you want to look at porn, balesa.co is like the place to go. It is curated by women with the female gaze in mind. If you want something soft and delicate and gentle and romantic, you can find that. If you want something harder, you can find that too. But it's got like a tag filtering system like AO3. So it's a good place to start if you're curious about it. But anyway, that's not really available to us when we are first coming of age. I don't want to get into this a lot, but this is why I think it's important that YA has sex in it. And some explicit sex. I'm not saying like dirty sex that treats them like adults, but that has, if a book is designed to be read by a 16-year-old girl, that 16-year-old girl definitely has questions about sex. So I'm just saying. Anyway, when it comes to masturbation in general, I think it's really important. I think it's actually very hard to have good sex if you don't know how your body works. If you don't know what you like, you're relying on someone else to figure that out for you. And that's very kind of questionable. I found that a lot of times people reading my stories are very okay with the male character having had sex before, but they don't want the girl to have had a lot of sex. And I get where that comes from, and it's super stigmatized for a woman to know what she wants sexually. But does it really make sense for us to rely on a boy to teach us what we like? I don't really think that that's fair, either to them or to us. So I am always a proponent of, it is your body and you should figure out what you like. Sex is something that's going to be a part of your life, most likely. For the majority, and probably the majority of everyone who's listening to me right now, sex is going to be a factor in your relationships, your life. It's something that you want to know about. You want to know what you like and what you don't like. And a lot of this just comes from exploration. So there is sort of a casting off a layer of shame. For me, my excuse, aside from my religious upbringing, which did kind of stick in my head, it was also that I kind of had this weird thing where I was like, well, why should I do it myself? If I want to be touched, I want someone else to touch me. I want it to be some like intimacy with another person. And that's true, and that's fine, but my relationship with my own body is a whole other thing. It's not so much about the outcome. It's not so much about the orgasm or whatever. It's just about me. It's like this one time where it's all about me and what I want. Let's see where to start. I will get to the more mechanics of it, but just in terms of the like the theory, I guess. I do think it's not only worth knowing, but actually important to know and to try. And this can be, whenever you do it, is probably the start of figuring out what you actually want from a sexual relationship. So like I said, when I started, it wasn't out of like a need for sex so much. It's just I realized there were a lot of questions I still had. There were still some like positions that weren't as comfortable as I thought they should be, or it was like other girls seem to like this and I don't, and sometimes I would ask my friends like, how do you make this position more comfortable, or how can anyone finish this way? And they would just kind of be like, and I was like, all right, it is at this point it's irresponsible for me to not know why I don't like this or what I do want. Sometimes this is a thing I've heard from a few women, that sometimes oral sex is a little bit awkward because it's kind of a lot of pressure. It's all on you. It's like the guy is waiting for you to finish. And sometimes it's not quite right. And it's like, well, why isn't it right? I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. I'm just going to sit here and panic, and then it's not going to happen. And then the longer it takes, the worse it is. And what if he hates it? And you get all in your head, right? So one way to get out of your head is to get all up in here and figure it out. Let's talk about specific things now. I'm going to say these two questions back to back. Well, one was, how do you masturbate? Is there a step-by-step wiki how? I am lost. That's cute. That's funny. And then this is going to be TMI as fuck, but since you mentioned you're open to it, here goes. I've only ever done clitoral masturbation and never like penetration down there because I'm partially unsure of what that would feel like. What if I don't like it? Also, I value my virginity a lot, and sometimes I think about how doing that would make me not one. So I'm conflicted. Okay, I get that. Coming from a religious upbringing, I get that. So one thing first, so that I don't have to say the word clitoris too many times, we are going to refer to these two different methods as the L train. So the L train is the train that you take in Chicago. It's called the L because it's elevated. The tracks are above ground. So that would be your clitoris. And then we're going to call the other kind, penetration, riding the tube, which is the underground in London. Do you get it? I'm very clever. I should be a writer. So this person has just said they only take the L train. They don't want to take the tube because they're worried they won't like it and they're worried about their virginity. So to you, I just want to ask you, and this is going to be very personal, so this is up to you. This is anecdotal. This is my thing. Like I said, I didn't use tampons, and I didn't masturbate, and I didn't do anything like that. Definitely did not ride the tube in any way until I lost my virginity. But then after, I kind of thought about why I was holding on to my virginity and what that actually meant. Because virginity is like a weird concept. I've had a lot of my fictional characters say things like virginity is a construct. And it is. I'm not going to really touch on the religious aspect of this. I don't want to devalue your beliefs, whatever they are. But I will say that historically, the importance of your virginity is very much it's the result of the male, I'm going to call it the male gaze, even though it's not specifically gaze, but it comes from this idea that men want to own you, right? And I'm not even trying to get into a feminist argument here, but that's really what it was, is that there was something dirty about the idea that another man would have penetrated you before, and that's why your virginity was worth something. After it happened to me, and I had a good partner in the sense that it was someone I didn't have an emotional connection to, but I had a good rapport with, that I was able to say, hey, that hurts, or hey, slow down or stop, etc. So for me, the importance of a sexual partner is it's someone that you can trust to listen to you. So it's possible that my views on this are less emotionally driven than maybe yours are, because I don't know what your attachment to your virginity is. But for me, as soon as it was gone, I was like, this actually had no impact on who I was or what I believed or anything at all, really. And all I've learned from this experience is that I feel behind. I feel like I don't know I don't understand my body. I don't understand how it works. I put myself in the hands of someone else, hoping that they could teach me. I wish now that I had known a little bit more about what I was getting into and what it was going to feel like and what I wanted to get out of it. I think at the time I just kind of wanted to sort of free myself from the shackles of holding on to my virginity. And looking back, I do sort of wish that I had lost it sooner. I wish that I had experimented a little bit more. Not necessarily, I know how that sounds, and I know that I have to defend it. I wish that I didn't have to defend it, but I think there is value in sex and in with your sexual partners. And this is a touchy subject, and I know that because I write erotica and I've seen the way that people react when my female characters have sex. So I know that there's a lot of stigma attached here. But it is a little bit unfair that boys get to know exactly what they want and we don't. We just sort of have to hope that we'll run into the tall, dark, handsome stranger who coaxes us into a romantic relationship, and then we get married, and then we earn the right to enjoy sex, and it's a little bit wild. But anyway, so back to the actual masturbation topic. So, to the person that says I'm lost completely, let's talk about taking the L. So, just from a very just physicality point of view here, any friction on the tracks, on the clitoris's tracks, you're going to end up with an orgasm. If you do that for long enough, if it's lubricated enough, it's just going to happen. You just friction it up. You pick whatever pace you want. That's one way to do it. There are vibrators that are just specifically for that. Those are the ones that it's just designed to just like put on the track of the L train, and that is enough. I actually had to do some experimenting with this not that long ago. I actually never used a vibrator until quite recently, actually. It took me a while to figure out what angle or like how much pressure. It took me like a few tries, like a few times of doing it. Definitely like set aside some you time for this. Like I said, masturbation is a different thing from sex, so you are in a different headspace doing this. Sex is about intimacy with another person. This is about you. So yeah, the other kind, riding the tube, that's what, anything that looks like a penis, that's what those are for. So those go inside too. You can also do this with your hands. Basically, if you're on the tube, you can reach your G-spot. So if you were to have a car in the tube, like say a finger, let's say a finger, and curl it upwards, there's sort of a squishy spot that's near your cervix, and if you were to make contact with that several times at an angle that pleases you, you would maybe also get where you're going that way. A lot of women need both. They need both some friction against the L train and the tube, but how you do that is a question of your hand cramping the first time, or figuring out what sort of sensation you want to have. There's a great scene in the show Sex Education where the main character, Otis, we'll call him the main character, he suggests to one of the other girls who doesn't know what she wants that she spend some time figuring it out, and she spends like several hours masturbating, and she says a hilarious line about her clit almost falling off. But anyway, this is just a process of exploration, figuring out what you like. This is all you. And this is the thing. You have nothing to be embarrassed about. There's no one you have to tell about this. You can just figure out how you like it. You can set the scene however you want. You can read, watch, listen, whatever you want. And you can take as long as you want to try to figure it out. It is weird. It's weird the first time. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know at all what it's going to feel like, what's going to happen, but that's part of the process. And once you figure it out for yourself, then you have a much easier time of figuring it out with someone else. It takes actually a lot of the pressure off, and it's definitely something you can incorporate into sex. If you're the kind of person who really struggles having an orgasm, then maybe see if you can give yourself one, because that could really make a difference. It's really hard to have an orgasm. It can be kind of stressful, because it's just like the math is weird. I don't know. Penises are very easy to figure out, and vaginas are complicated. I used to refer to it as my cavern of mystery, and it is. This is a cavern of mystery. If it's hard for you to enjoy sex in the sense that you don't come very often, it could just be that you haven't figured it out yet. maybe you don't know what you like, and maybe you should try. This one, I actually love this one. So, an aside to the female masturbation question, is too much of it bad? I sometimes find myself wondering during sex, or rather foreplay, oh, you must have the thing that I do with oral sex. That I could probably get myself off faster even if I love my partner very much. It's relatable. And I'm kind of worried the masturbation may have ruined foreplay for me. I don't know, sigh. Okay, so here's what I think the problem actually is. It's not that it's too much masturbation. I think it's that you don't feel comfortable asking him to do what you would do to yourself, which is understandable. I actually also have a hard time with that. And it can be hard. Talking about sex it's not something that women are supposed to do. So it's like we kind of have to practice doing it, which is really hard. Though if you want to practice doing it, there's an app called Juicebox. I think the app is paid, but it has this bot service that's called Slutbot. Anyway, it's a free texting service, and basically a robot dirty talks with you. So you can practice dirty talk, or you can use it to ride the L train or the tube, up to you. So yeah, so basically it's just a totally no shame way to kind of learn how to dirty talk if that's something you want to work on. And the reason I say that is because dirty talk and asking for what you want are they're in a Venn diagram that's basically a circle. Like, they have different purposes. Obviously, dirty talk is to also help get your partner off, but asking for what you want can also be like a good thing to do in bed. It doesn't have to be awkward. You can turn that into something that's enjoyable for both of you. But my point is, I don't think the problem is that you're doing it too much, because there isn't really a replacement for sex. I don't think, and especially to the person who was worried about their virginity, sex and masturbation do not feel the same. They just really don't. Even if they're the same, like, physical concept and you're doing the same motions, it's not the same thing, because sex with another person is about the two of you, or however many of you. And that's about something different. So basically, I don't think there's such a thing as ruining sex. But I do understand what you mean about, yeah, you could do it faster and maybe it would feel better if you did it right, because he's not, or she's not. But that's kind of a matter of communication, because if you can do it, you can teach them how to do it too. Ideally, you could say something like, hey, don't put so much pressure directly on the L train. You gotta like hover above the tracks. That's like a perfectly valid thing to say. Except maybe not in those words. I hope that this has helped. I hope that just me talking about it has helped. I definitely make an effort to try, like, I know I used euphemisms, but I think it's important to be able to talk about this topic. I think that it shouldn't feel like something, it shouldn't feel so taboo. I mean, like I said, boys talk about this right away. They talk about this when they're like 12, and we aren't allowed to even think about it until, I think a lot of us probably don't figure this out until our 20s. So this is just, we can talk about this is basically what I want you to know. You don't have to talk about it with me either. You can talk about it with whoever you want. But the idea is you have a right to understand your body, and you have a right to know what you want, and to be able to ask for what you want, and to give yourself the time to figure it out. That is perfectly okay. So yeah, I don't know if I answered any actual questions. I do think there is a how-to video on Balesa, so if you're curious, you could start there. Hopefully this is informative, or at least helps you point yourself in the right direction. Sex positivity is obviously super important to me. I'm kind of working on something that I don't want to talk about yet, but I'm working on something that I hope to be able to share with you guys eventually, but I definitely am the person to talk to about this sort of thing if you want to. That was so vague. That was so vague. Oh, I'm working on a secret project, but this is important to me. You're right, the person who acknowledged me as an erotica writer, yeah, I do have thoughts about this. And I have thoughts about how it's healthy and something that is important. And also, it's also healthy to choose not to. It's to do it and then be like, all right, well, I've got what I needed from this, and then not do it. That's also fine. It's more like if you want to know, you have a right to find out. Eventually, I would love to write a book that's like designed for teenagers, that you're supposed to, like the stuff you're supposed to learn in health class, that you can't because you can't. So, you know, like our bodies, ourselves, but specifically for young women. I think that would be so fun. It would be really awkward, but like that's the point. It's so awkward because we're not allowed to talk about it. So I think we should. I've talked for long enough. So this has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you next week.